We
Yep.
are live. Hello there, Bill. Nice to see you. Hello, everybody. It is a quiet out here in California. It is a heat wave. It is warm and beautiful spring. And I am, of course, Barbara Tien, speaking to you live. And this isn't in person, I guess, but live.
Well, sort of.
How does that work exactly? And joining me today is Emma Cox, who is our host for the fantastic Emma Explores series. It is really quiet out there. I think we can just go ahead and say that. Bill, it's delightful to see you, but it is unusually quiet. I think everybody is just plain exhausted. Exhausted, as my family in New York would say.
Post Roots Tech. And I mean, Phil's been doing great things with Roots Tech, and Max here as well. I don't know if he took part.
Hello there. Hello there. It's just quiet. So I'm taking no offense to the quiet. It is just how it even goes. Even my cat is asleep. I mean, it's that quiet. So we were just chatting, Emma, a few changes coming up for starters. April, not going to happen. We're going to skip April. And the coveted Emma Explores slots will be hungry for something else we'll come up with to do. You know, you don't need to know because you are off in a spring fling, and that's okay. We can handle it because coming up in May, we're going to celebrate our second birthday with Emma Explores. That's pretty exciting. As we
It's gone so quickly, though, hasn't it?
Hasn't it, though? And in celebrating birthdays tomorrow, March 14th, for all who celebrate, is Pi Day.
Pi Day, okay.
It's big. It's a big deal here in Silicon Valley, you know.
Well, it's St. Patrick's Day in a few days as well on the 17th.
Yeah, that's something about green beer. I don't get that. Why would you make your beer
Guinness.
green? Yeah, Guinness doesn't ever get green, does it?
No,
they don't do that. That's just wrong. It's just wrong.
No.
Okay, so I don't know what green beer is.
No.
In any case, we're celebrating Pi Day and getting fat because that's just fun. So tell us, Emma, what's coming for Emma Explores next week?
So on Thursday night, I could be talking about artists, painters and sculptors that I've discovered in my tree. So those are people who are might be my relatives, or they might be relatives of relatives. So they're still in the tree. So I've always known there've been one or two out there, but I discovered one of them recently. He's done a stained glass window. A lot of stained glass windows. So and he's done one which was like half a dome. So obviously it was in a place called the Baltic Exchange in London, and it was done to commemorate World War I, I think it was. And so this has actually been taken out and is stored somewhere else, and I've got a photograph of that in there.
Oh.
So that's him. A fairy painter, somebody who specialised in Victorian fairy painting.
Oh.
And they're not that well, they're not pretty little fairies, put it like that.
Oh.
No, they're
we're talking different. Hieronymus Bosch kind of
yeah, that sort of thing. Yes. And I think also
Good fairies gone bad
by the substances that he might have imbibed at the time. But he was very well known for
absinthe, I'm thinking.
Yeah, something like that. Bit of Moulin Rouge there. Yeah. So John Anster Fitzgerald, his name was, and so I'm going to be talking about him, giving some examples of the type of paintings that he did, and I think that some of his paintings are in some of the national museums here. So he was quite a significant painter, and his daughter. And she was also involved in Australia. So we're not just sticking to England here. So we're going to talk about that and give some examples of the different type of paintings. She and her husband was also a painter as well. And then we're going to be hopping across to somebody else. And then the wider family there. And that goes to Scotland. And there's furniture design, paintings, a bit of sculpting. And then we've got a couple of other people, and there's somebody who did military paintings and horses, and a quacky duck.
What?
A quacky duck.
A quacky duck.
Yes.
The duck was not the ancestor, but someone who painted ducks?
Yep, he painted Quacky Duck.
Oh, Quacky Duck, a character.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
is this from a book? Forgive my ignorance.
No, not from a book or anything like that. This is something he came up with, and he painted all sorts of things. He specialised in horses, so he did lots and lots of different things with horses. And he was also in the military, and he was in charge of looking after horses and things like that. But one of the things he also did was, I don't. Do you remember Pumpy the elephant? Do you remember hearing about Pumpy the elephant? Okay, so a few years ago, I was approached by somebody from the Victoria and Albert Museum in London and saying that they had this little stuffed elephant called Pumpy, and he'd been donated by Maud Catley. And Maud is something second or third cousin, and she didn't have any children. And the person I'm talking to is actually her brother Gilbert. He's the one who did Quacky Duck. But she donated Pumpy and Pumpy's clothes and all sorts of different things to the Victoria and Albert Museum. And they'd actually been doing some restoration on Pumpy. So I ended up, the people who approached me were a television company for the BBC, and I think it was called Secrets of the Museum. It's a few years ago now. And they approached me and said, are you interested in sort of being involved with this and being filmed and going up and sort of meeting Pumpy and everything like that? So I did. And I got to see behind the scenes of the textile department at the Victoria and Albert Museum, which was amazing. So I saw old kimonos, I saw Boris Karloff's um, um,
Costumes.
Frankenstein costume
Yeah.
type things and things that they were doing. And
I've seen some of their costume shows,
yeah,
exhibits, and things
yeah.
like gowns and yeah.
Yeah. And so that was amazing.
Oh,
And so I got filmed there. And then they did a follow up when they came here, and they filmed me looking through some of the family history stuff, because there were five siblings and none of them had any children. So they donated their things to the museum. And I ended up on television on the first episode of this, one of the first things there. And I got lots of people contacting me as a result of that. So family saying, oh, I'm descended from so and so. And so I had at least two or three other people, which was lovely to hear. And then I ended up going up to the Bethnal Green Museum of Childhood, which is children's part of the V&A, Victoria and Albert Museum. And the curator up there, he showed me all these other little outfits that they'd got. And he showed me Pumpy's friends. So Pumpy had little teddy bear friends and various other things, about half a dozen little animals and all the little costumes that they'd made. And one of Pumpy's outfits, they reckon that it was made from the same clothing that there was a picture of Maud as a little girl in this little blue jacket with the little buttons, and Pumpy was basically wearing the same
matching
clothes.
outfit. Yeah,
And he had
I
little
remember
kilt and all
that.
sorts of things. So
Oh, now was this contemporaneous with Winnie the Pooh or before? And like
um,
Paddington Bear? It's amazing how
probably
many.
it was
Yeah,
the very early 20th century. Yeah.
right, right.
Mm.
What was the other bear before Winnie the Pooh? Like a German bear?
There's the
I don't know.
Steve for the
Steve
manufacturers,
bear.
and
Yeah,
they're sold at Hamleys, which is the toy shop in London. So
that's right. That's right.
mm.
Oh.
Yes. So that was amazing. So Gilbert, being Gilbert and Maud, were brother and sister, and I don't know whether Quacky Duck was anything to do with the toys that went to the museum. I can't quite remember that, but it ended up being he painted it, and it was on this little like a little jewelry box or little china box that you could put things into. So yes, Quacky Duck.
Okay, how many out there had matching outfits with their dolls or bears or, whatever? Oh, yeah, don't get me. Oh, now you did. You did. You got me started.
And if you're talking about textiles and things like that, a slightly different subject,
Yeah.
but still artistic, is I interviewed a lady and I can't remember her name, but she basically had a book, but this person had done it as almost like a diary of all patches, swatches from the different outfits that she'd had. And so she did the research and she put it together, and it basically was telling this woman's story through her clothes.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. My goodness. Because they have the collection.
Mm.
I have a quilt that is in my list of things I want to be doing a project about.
Mm.
That was I was told as a child that my grandmother made it for me. I don't even know if that story is true, but she might have. I know she made a lot of quilts. And it is all little storybook tiles. I am told that each of the little outfits the fabrics are made from were dresses that my mother wore as a child. But I have no way of knowing if that's really true. And certainly, I so wish I had taken better care of this quilt as a child. There's a hole, a cat or a dog chewed in it, and things like that. But it's preserved now. It's properly preserved now.
There's another story about a quilt because I interviewed a lady called Barbara Caver. I think it
Uh-huh.
was late last year, and she's of Cuban ancestry. And she was saying that her Cuban grandmother had a quilt which had the family tree embroidered on it. And so
That's
that
a thing.
hung in
Yeah.
pride of place, and sort of extra people were added down the bottom as the generations grew and everything. And she always knew it was there. And then she used some of that information when she went back to Cuba to actually find people and things like that. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a long tradition. I don't know a lot about the history of quilting and how it is different here in the Americas than it might have been in England. Certainly, it was very important to my family in the kind of Quaker side of my family. And I know very, very important. There's a fantastic collection of African American quilts here in Berkeley, California, from the local museum. There was a collector, and then they acquired his entire collection of, I don't know, 4,000 or 6,000 quilts. Mostly reflecting the African American migration, the so-called Great Migration from the South to the North and West, and many of them were here. Having these family artifacts, sometimes ordinary household artifacts, and sometimes, national pieces of art, passed down in a family. But in the case that you have of these, great national pieces of art, you have curators and so on sharing the insights about that. Lisa McGuire chimes in. Good morning, Lisa. Lovely to see you, or good afternoon on the East Coast. I've always been fascinated by the cultural differences in children's literature. While this may be survivorship bias or flea marketers' taste, but antique UK books are about fairies, and French antique books are all about adventures and
Yeah.
exploring. Is
Yeah.
that really true?
Yeah, you've got Tintin and things like that,
Tintin, right?
Asterix, haven't
Babar.
you? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then fairies, that you've got the flower fairies in England and things like that. They're nice
And
fairy stories, so they're pretty fairy stories for children. They're not
right.
adult,
Scary.
slightly scary stories as the things that he painted about.
Gonna hear about this one. But that makes me really think. Thank you for that, Lisa. It really makes me think about American children's stories. Okay, now we need a cultural expert to step in here with this analysis that somebody has probably written a dissertation on.
Mm.
But I'm thinking of American children's stories, whether it's things like Daniel Boone or Paul Bunyan, and these kinds of stories that are uh, epic stories of adventure and danger and, battles. And gosh, maybe I'm just projecting a little, cultural bias here.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
what comes to mind.
there are quite famous ones in this country as well. Enid Blyton was an author who wrote The Famous Five and The Secret Seven, and so they were about adventures. You've got Narnia, C.S. Lewis,
Narnia,
like that,
yeah,
haven't you? And there's lots of things about adventure, but then you've got Lord of the Flies, which is like not really a children's book, is
not really a children's book,
it? So
but read like in middle school just to get kids to wake up to the feelings they're feeling.
yeah.
Yeah. All books about children are not necessarily children's books.
I can remember when I was young, I had things like Hans Christian Andersen and Grimm's fairy tales. Now, Grimm's fairy
Absolutely.
tales are
Brutal.
scary. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's what's on this quilt that was, very much a part of my childhood. And each tile of the quilt is of a different children's fairy tale. And ironically, on one you have obviously the Hansel and Gretel and the decorated house, and then the next one is Alice looking up at the Cheshire Cat, which is not exactly, different genre. But I was a huge Alice in Wonderland fan. I mean, not I didn't even know I didn't know Disney did one. This was all from the Tenniel illustrated books,
Mhm.
and but that is a reminder of how the interpretation of even an old story in a form in an art in an artist's depiction becomes a cultural touch point for
Mm,
generations,
mm,
right? So I don't think the Disney Alice in Wonderland probably came out in the 60s, I want to say something like that. And ditto with a Winnie the Pooh Disney version was also sometime, I think, in the late 60s, something like that. They're just wrong to me. I mean, it's like, no, 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 no. You don't take a classic and rewrite it.
But that's what
But
we do as a society. We
it
take what
is.
comes before and we make a new version of it according
And
to
that's
current
why
tastes
being
and
old, you decide you don't like it. But it is the making it modern, making it new, making it
mm,
relevant is powerful.
mm.
It's just that there were periods of time where the taste was just awful. Let's just admit it. And yes, Lisa, your hours commitment to the Parisian flea markets has definitely had some important milestones, important use of moving this conversation along. In fact, I think I need a little time in Parisian flea markets just to
Mm.
complete my life. But flea markets anywhere really, it can be great fun, actually.
You never know what you're gonna discover in them. I mean, I look for books wherever I go,
Right.
and things like family trees sometimes. I've bought miscellaneous things from all sorts of different places, sort of markets, shops. Uh, we have the National Trust here,
Uh-huh.
so that and they have a secondhand bookshops in a lot
Ooh.
of their properties now, and people donate them, and some of them are actually looked after by librarians and everything. So anything that's really nice gets sort of put online and sort of sold slightly differently, but you can end up finding some really good books there. And I've bought quite a lot over the years, and my partner is always like, "Can we go to that? Do you want to go to the bookshop again?" It's like, "Yeah, of course."
Yeah, I don't know anything about books.
No, I have none in the house at all. No.
None in the house. Right, right.
No.
No, we have the San Francisco Bay Area is pretty big, and with a few major universities here, we have a pretty well educated, community around.
Yeah.
There is on a former Air Force base right near the water in Alameda, California, there is a monthly flea market, which is the so-called antiques show. It just has to be 20 years old or older to qualify as an antique. And yeah, there's a paper seller there that has, printed goods, which is always so much fun to flip through. And I was thinking about how some of the prints that I bought from a children's uh, primer, I took leaves from those and have them framed in my kitchen. And now they've become touchstones to my kids as they grew
Mm,
up. One of them says, like, an egg. It's like just so charming. And Lisa chimes in again, still on UK
mm,
kids' books. There's
pony
also a
books.
great British tradition of pony books. Yes,
Yeah.
there are horse stories for kids, but nothing like the British. There, in other words, here in the US or in Canada, there are horse stories for kids, but nothing like the British production. That's
Christine
an.
Pullen Thompson, I think, did horse stories. But you've
uh,
also got there's like a cartoon one, I can't remember what it was called, about a little girl and her pony, and a sort of
I
story.
wonder if I would argue that, yeah, I think there are American pony stories like the Chincoteague horses, wild horses of Chincoteague, or, I was never a horsey person,
No.
but it seems to me that there's an entire industry feeding horsey people things. I don't know. And I'll bet some of
There
this stuff.
definitely is, because my cousin's granddaughter, she's 12 or 13 now, and she's into horses. She actually was champion of France a couple of years ago. And
Oh,
yes, very, very good. And she was younger than all her competition. And try and find little horsey presents for her. So I got a picture which was made up of in the shape of a horse with a load of names or words that were associated with horses in it for her. So there's amazing sort of different things you can do, which are personal to people. But I was
yeah.
thinking about the other thing I was thinking about was when you go along to all these flea markets and things, there are various people who specialize in returning things to people. So if they find
Right.
things that actually have some sort of identifiable name in there or something. And there's a lady, Chelsea Brown, she's in New York. I interviewed her 2 or 3 years ago now. And so she basically looks for these sort of things, does some research, and then gives them back to the descendants if they're interested. And there's somebody who does medals in this country. He's based in Essex. I can't remember his name. And there's somebody else who does returning things to people. Somebody else I've interviewed, she talks about postcards, where she looks at the stories behind the people who have postcards and who sent them and where did they go to and that sort of thing. So
Well,
there's all sorts of different things.
on postcards, that's a big crossover topic, if I may insert a little plug for Kathy's Corner. Kathy Stone, who has our ongoing series called Kathy's Corner, talks a lot about the preservation of the physical artifacts, paper goods like photos, but also all kinds of other artifacts. We got on a riff about postcards last year that is still echoing. We did a series at holiday season of people presenting how postcards have been important to them. And then most recently, a program about preserving postcards. And then this month is going to be a program talking about Jane Chapman in New Zealand and this extraordinary treasure box, a tin that was passed down to her husband, of old postcards that were an exchange of letters, really from World War One. And then she has been doing the research to tell the larger story of the connection of all of these postcards. So yeah, those are always, you go from artifact to the stories behind them. And here are people who are finding artifacts and returning them. Yeah, it's right back to how we're all connected, through the things in our lives and then the stories that we leave behind that, after we're, you know, fairy dust. Get that little call back there.
And Lisa says something about a lady called Marguerite Henry. I don't know who that is. I'm not sure what
Yeah,
she would have
she's
written about.
talking about, this was in the
Horsey
context of
things.
horses things. Yes,
Mm.
horsey things. And she referenced the Pullian,
So Pelaine Thompson, Christine Pelaine Thompson.
Pulaine.
Mm.
Okay, there you go.
She was an author. Yeah.
Okay. And Marguerite Henry. Yes, Misty of Chincoteague. So Chincoteague is these barrier islands. Oh, I see. Thank you, Lisa. I did not know that. So Marguerite Henry was the author behind Misty of Chincoteague. Chincoteague is a place where they are barrier islands off of Virginia and North Carolina, where wild horses still roam. There have herds of wild horses. There's a whole community of people who maintain these horses. And then they have a sell-off of some of the horses. They cull from those to find homes for these ponies. And they are like the adolescent girl's dream pony story because they are wild and their girl comes and tames them. What's not to like? My brother has a house near there, and it's quite real. It's very cool. They ford these are barrier islands that get flooded, and then we have storms of these great Atlantic storms, and that region is safe from the most dramatic of the storms. But it's wild oceans. Like I said, what's not to like? Indeed, Lisa, thank you. It is a classic of children's lit. And even someone like me who is not at all horsey read them and read them to my kids.
Just thinking slightly on that subject, slightly different. It's like how many of us have got books and things that our fathers, grandfathers, whatever owned. So it's like I think I've got a dictionary that belonged to my dad. He's still alive, but I got it. I can't remember. I think it might have gone to his sister, and I got it from her when she died, or something like that. But and actually, with people having their names written in them, and even book
Yeah.
plates in them.
So this is a book about, it's actually a children's book. Well, like a middle school kids sort of learn about the American frontier that it was passed down to me because my great grandfather has an essay in here. He was a newspaperman and has an essay in here. And, it's this sort of thing, nice
Yep.
little pictures in it, and it tells the story of the American West. And it by itself is just interesting. But there's a very awkward, subtle thing on the cover to it that has suddenly had me being a little cautious in how it's shared. And I believe this was published in about 1926. Can you see what about this cover might be a little awkward?
Is
Yeah.
that hunting?
No, that's not the issue. It's the cover there. You sort of see
Frontier
the
days? I don't know.
Frontier Days. It's the symbol that's used across the bottom of the uh
What does that mean?
it's a
Oh, sorry,
swastika.
I couldn't see that until you pointed it out. Yes, yes,
I know,
yes, but
right?
Hitler, basically took it over from
Oh, I
something else. It's
know.
been through
I
history
know.
forever, and yeah.
I know. It's a
Mm,
Greek, sort of a but well, yeah.
mm.
And, 1926, so soon we have Lindbergh. And yeah, there's a lot of, Lisa says, oh my God. So I've been a little cautious about sharing that one, but it goes to show how the context of these things sort of lets you peel back the layers. And it's especially interesting as you find them in your own family. I did not have the benefit of any of the books from my family at all passed down. We traveled. We were always packing up the whole household and moving every few years until I was basically in high school. And so none of those kinds of things stayed with me. But we've made a point. We've lived in this house since our daughters were born. And I've made sure to keep the best of the children's books that we have. I think I have one Winnie the Pooh, which is an important touchstone for me when I was 6. So when we were young,
Yeah.
is one of my all-time favorites and just sits there right on my bookshelf so I can stop and read it too.
Isn't it fun though when you find these books that you read as a child and that
Yeah.
the future generation? So the Hungry Caterpillar. Do you remember that?
Oh,
The Very
yeah,
Hungry Caterpillar.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And in fact, to that classic Goodnight Moon, the United States Postal Service recently issued a set of stamps around currently in circulation of Goodnight Moon, the author, Margaret Wise Brown, and I can't remember the illustrator's name. And those kinds of things that just become so. In fact, those books are right behind me. Collection of children's books. We got a bunch of my husband's favorite. He had these sets of scientific books as a kid that his dad wanted him to be an engineer. So he has all these books about how science works and kids kind of encyclopedia things. But those are important to. Well, I suppose at some point we have to cull, we have to prune, we have to send back in. But that's what A Books is for, or other used
Yeah.
bookstores, online used bookstores to go find those things. And our all-time favorite, eBay, which you kicked me off to searching and things for eBay. So getting back to the point about artists, do you find that in doing this kind of research on the known artists in your family, have you been able to find pieces of theirs, or are they all in collections and out
Oh no.
featuring?
One of the ones I was looking at, Florence was the daughter of John Anster Fitzgerald, and I actually found two recent auctions. very
Oh,
recent, as in last month and this month. So their work is in circulation. So, and some of them. But do you remember when I did Handyside and I looked up
yes.
the thing about auction
Yeah,
results
patents
and
and
things like
yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So that's another thing to look up and just see if there are old auction sites for um, information there. But I have got a lot of sources in this one. It's well over one page. Lots of different
So
things.
a little plug here before we wrap up is that if you haven't attended any of Emma's live programs, you may have noticed in the recordings how incredibly generous you are with your slides and the resources. You are at heart an educator trying to share the joy you find from this research, and giving others that encouragement. Because I think, even just coming out of Roots Tech, as I was saying before we got started, there's one whole thing which are specific learned connections that I was not aware of that happened at Roots Tech, but there's also this inspiration side
Mm.
for getting much more methodical about what I was looking for, instead of pretending I'm walking around in an antique shop and saying, "Oh, look, I'm related to this," but actually knowing what I want to try to accomplish, and then setting out to accomplish it and find the details, and,
Mm.
like a researcher, as opposed to a kid in a candy store. Oh, because, yeah, it's like that. And it's a progress, right?
But I think if you are interested in family history genealogy, you are most likely to be interested in things like books and old objects and things like that, because that naturally helps you with what you're trying to do, doesn't it? So you become a
Right.
collector yourself.
That's how this postcard thing got started.
Mm.
It's everybody loves a postcard, and pretty soon one thing led to another, and this everybody wants to hear about postcards. Yeah. And a quick reminder while I'm here as Projectkin, I am always happy to help us all better appreciate where we are around the world and how we're connected around the world. And so I have my members map. And you just go to projectkin.org/members map, members with a S hyphen map, and see where everybody else is, and drop into the form to add yourself, and I send out postcards. Hey, if I'm asking for an address, I got to do something. But I never share their
It-
personal address in the map. It's always just the postal. What would you say?
I've got the Hooked on Stories You Too sticker sitting on the notice board just next to me there.
Now that one's special, though. That one's just for patrons, and they're all listed there too. So if you are a Projectkin patron, I thank you, thank you, thank you, and that is my gift, because I'm very miserly with the money that my very generous patrons support. It goes to my Zoom bill, and my occasional stickers is my little discount investment.
And spreading the word.
Spreading the good word, spreading the good word.
Mm.
So why don't we take that as a wrap up? And I want to thank you again for making yourself available on this off week, because of course, for the month until I believe it's the last Sunday in March, all of North America is an hour ahead of where it usually is relative to GMT. It's not until the end of March that you go on to summertime.
Yes,
So that's why this is at 5 p.m. your time instead of 6. It's hard to keep up. It's
it
hard to
is.
keep up.
But you
I
did a
do.
post about it, didn't you?
Matter of fact, I did. And I'll have you know, I got it. I was just about to release it before I realized I was an hour off with my explanation about how it worked in Australia, New Zealand. Oh, you'd think I'd get good at this by now, but no, still making mistakes. So I'm relieved if I get it out there without a major error.
But the thing about it is you can always correct things, can't you?
Shh, don't tell anybody. Yes, you can always correct things. And that is kind of the truth about our research, too. All righty then. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We'll talk
Thank you.
soon, and I'll see you next week, Thursday. Details at projectkin.org.
Thank
Events.
you.
Bye
See you
now.
then. Bye.
Okay, bye. Thank you, Lisa, Bill. Thank you, thank you. Bye. Are you still there?